We
All
need
right,
more
how's
people.
everyone doing?
Hello.
Hi. We do, because we're premiering something really cool.
Yes,
Hannah, you should use your Royal Canterlot voice to get more people in here.
Everyone come in here.
Come here now.
There you go. I just did Twilight the Unicorn. That should get it in.
This is not gonna stay in.
Come on, Twilight.
All right. In short, we are Silly Philly Studios, which we are an animation team, fan-based, and we're actually responsible for the recent adaptation of Charlie the Unicorn, Twilight, redubbed as Twilight the Unicorn.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Forgive us.
We've also
Come on, it was funny.
Hello, Lost Foss. Lost Foss sometimes does music for us. He's awesome.
Yeah, there he is right there. He decided to show up in our room at
He did
3
music
a.m.
for Luna's Cutie Mark, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the first one that we ever made. So
Yeah, Luna's Cutie Mark was actually our premiere animation. Anyway, at this panel, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the ins and outs of a animation team, and because there's honestly a whole lot of projects that are coming out of the fandom, but a lot of them don't really have a good sense of direction just yet, and some of them are really falling apart before they get to be realized. So hopefully people will find this useful, people will find it interesting. Anyway.
Yeah.
Go, Jeremy.
All right. Now, first off, sorry, we didn't rehearse this enough.
clearly not.
Now, note that while you might have a good idea, oftentimes a script is not going to be enough to get your idea out there, and it's not going to be.
Apparently, crush, kill, destroy
can somebody
swag
close
is
that
going
door?
on. It's all good.
Anyway.
Keep going.
Oftentimes you'll find that a script is not going to be enough to get your idea out there, and people aren't going to jump on just a script. You're going to need to have either really good storyboards, an animatic, or a trailer, something like that to draw people into the project and generate interest in it before you can start recruiting things. Let's see. And also, you also want to make sure that you don't wind up underestimating the magnitude of Flash animation, for instance, because a lot of work goes into making a very short amount of animation. Like, on average, most animators, it takes them about maybe a week to do only 30 seconds of a clip. Granted, a lot of people can work faster. Some people work even slower than that, but that's kind of just an average. Anyway. Now, to recruit VAs, we're obviously a very VA-heavy team. As you can tell by, we have 4 of our VAs here with us today.
Hi.
Usually, once you have a trailer or an animatic available, all that's necessary to open auditions is just to make it public, and VAs will usually come to you.
Use Equestria Daily.
Yes, usually through Equestria Daily and the Nightly Roundup.
We like new projects. Give us things to voice. We'll do
Yeah,
it.
don't be afraid to contact us. You know, we like hearing about this stuff.
The nice thing is that VAs can really work in a lot of projects at once, so it's really easy for them to kind of get themselves out there. So it's usually pretty easy to find VAs. But
Something that I think happens a lot, I'm sorry if I'm interjecting, is a lot of people who are leading projects don't want to contact the VAs because they don't think the VAs want to work on it. Well, the VAs sometimes get afraid to contact people because they're afraid that they're just going to like get shot down horribly because they don't think anybody wants to work with them. Like, that's honestly how a lot of us think. So don't be afraid to ask us to do something. We're happy to do it.
The other thing I will throw in to go along with what you said real quick is before you start contacting voice actors, before you start making all these posts and things like that, you need to actually have something going on with your visuals or something. Have a plan for that, because so many people say, well, I have this really cool idea for a My Little Pony project, but I need someone to animate, and I need someone to write the script, and I need someone to make the music, and it's like, okay, so what are you doing? Well, I'm in charge, you know, and you have to have a plan.
that's actually really important advice right there. I can't tell you how many people have come forward to me saying, like, hey, do you want to animate this for me, and then I'll take all the credit. Anyway, moving on. Usually, you need several staff members for a successful animation project. Granted, people can work and occupy multiple roles. Like, in addition to being an artist, in addition to being an animator, I'm also an artist. Meredith, in addition to voicing Fluttershy for our animation, she's also a writer and quite prolific at that.
And the writer of the promo coming up.
Jade is one of our vector artists as well as one of our primary animators. All in all,
We're just the
keep checking.
princesses.
Yeah, it's all
Should
here,
take
just
better
here.
notes. Let's see.
Go, Jeremy.
Silly PowerPoint. managing project right now.
I'm sorry, this is so sloppy.
He made the PowerPoint while he was half asleep on the airplane.
But ponies and
Pony.
Pony.
ponies should
Pony.
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 Go ahead.
All right. Now, one thing that's also important, if you're going to be a team that's going to be working on multiple different projects, you're going to want to make sure that you have, one thing that's often good to have is going to be a project lead for each project. For instance, they're basically the person who's going to create the deadlines, tell people when to get the voices in. They're kind of the director or the producer for a team or for a project. And usually they're going to wind up being a writer or a animator oftentimes, but that's not necessarily a requirement.
Usually it's the creative lead of whatever idea it is. If you're in an animation group and they like our group and we make a whole bunch of different things, somebody gets an idea and we decide to go with it, that's the person that is in charge because it's their vision and we want them to
You want
really
it to be a
make it through.
teamwork thing, no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
This
nice
off-
thing. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say the nice thing about this team in particular is that everyone has free reign to control a specific project that they want to put out there. So yeah.
Groups with a clear and direct leader can be effective in some cases, but also having like a de facto leader or just having a collective leadership often makes decisions a lot easier to make and makes it less likely where it feels like somebody's going to be stealing all the credit for a animation. Anyway, moving on to basically how you're going to wind up collaborating and sharing your how you wind up sharing your files is typically you're going to use a program like Google Drive or Dropbox. Those are what I'd recommend. You also want to make sure you keep in clear contact with your team, usually through Skype or a message board.
It's best when you're friends with your team members.
Yeah,
Yeah.
try to keep your
Guys, oh my god.
try to keep your staff members as your friends. That's an important thing.
And
Right.
Skype is not the best way to send audio files. I've learned that the hard way.
No, it's not. Get Dropbox.
So annoying.
Dropbox.
Dropbox
If you're in charge of an animation project and you've gotten to the point where you've written everything and all the lines are coming in, get Dropbox and attach everybody to
Skype
it.
So much
Sucks.
easier. Yeah.
It is so much easier to handle everything. You can make little separate files for everything, and
You would not know how many times I've logged off before a file has finished submitting, and then they get ticked at me.
Or someone will send me something and I like click open and it takes like an hour so I forget about it and yeah, it's not good either.
All right, now, one thing that was probably addressed which was addressed a little bit on the fan VA panel is about how to get into projects as a VA. Jeremy?
I mean, we all kind of covered this in the fan VA panel, but it's just, again, if you want to be a voice actress or a voice actor for a project, make sure your mic is good. Make sure that you have a quiet space to record. Best places to find auditions are usually the Roundup in EQD if you want pony projects. Or PonyChan, I think, sometimes puts up some auditions too.
Or even just like look up on YouTube MLP auditions and go for the most recent results.
And
Like-
word of mouth is very important. in
Getting
this
to know
community.
people is good.
Getting to know people is important because when you work with somebody, don't lose contact with them because we all bring each other work. Like that's
Yeah.
how we work. Like
Having contacts is the fastest way to
Yeah.
get our names out.
we're all in one group. I know for Journey of the Spark, I was one of the first people cast in the movie. And they were like, so who do you think would be good for this, and this part? And I was like, well, I've got Jen, and I've got Hannah, and Rena's over here, and Rev, and all these other people that we're all, like, close with. So we can bring each other work. So once you get that contact, if you're a voice actress or a voice actor, keep those contacts because you're going to become really good friends with these people, too. So it's not like it's just going to be like, I hate this person, but they're bringing me work, so I have to be smiling.
Yeah, don't be a jerk.
It's really important to keep everybody like in the community close and happy. Be nice to each other, and then you'll get more work.
Don't be afraid to post fun little things on YouTube. Even if you don't have a lot of subscribers, a lot of views. I didn't have any when I started, and I was like, oh, I'm going to post like background ponies, random voices, things like that. People will search for that stuff and find it.
I can attest
Bless
to
you.
that.
And the most random things get on EQD. So if you make something random, chances are it will get on EQD.
One thing that's also
Hi, I'm
been
Lyra, and I like pants.
Oh yeah, thanks. One thing that's been insanely useful for me as an animator is also when VAs actually post sample reels of all the characters that they often like to voice or can do. Having something like that out there is also a clear sign that you're willing to work with other animators, and it's kind of like an open door invitation that people can contact you for voice work. Now, let's see, moving on. Now, getting into some actual animation bits. First off, Flash is vector-based animation. So that means it's going to be using, first off, what's a vector? It's not actually, a lot of people have this misconception that a vector is simply a PNG image with alpha, when in reality, a vector actually has no dimensions. It's actually a format called an SVG, Scalable Vector Graphic. And if you want to get technical into it, it's basically a series of mathematical equations and relationships that bind a bunch of points and paths together, and it's really kind of boring. But it looks cool.
And whatnot.
And
He always says and whatnot, and we bug him about it constantly.
Yeah.
Always says butts.
and a scalable vector graphic can basically, the reason it's used for Flash is that it can be changed to any size without any loss. So that's why it's very important for Flash and why it's basically used. Let's see. Come on, Jeremy.
Come on, Jeremy.
So some common vectoring programs are, like, one of the free ones that's available is Inkscape, which can export to an SVG. There's also Adobe Illustrator, which that one is friendly with Flash and can actually run a few Flash plugins. And Flash itself is also technically a vectoring program, but you can't send it to a true vectoring program, and vectoring is kind of hard in Flash when it comes to animation. And if, Jeremy, do you want to actually wait, yeah. We actually have quite a few vector artists on our team. If Jeremy wants to pull up our backgrounds.
Yeah, pull up Pony though.
Now this is a sample of one of the vectors that we've done, or that our friend Shadiosis has done.
He does
And
amazing backgrounds.
So good.
Yeah.
It is an insanely and meticulously detailed vectorization of Ponyville. So like every single one of those pieces that you see in there can basically be moved around, taken out, recolored. It's just insanely detailed, and you'll actually get to see this in action in the animation we're going to be premiering in a little bit. If you want to bring up the puppet set.
Foreshadowing.
Now, I think it was probably about like 120, maybe. Yeah. And that's before grouping. Now, puppet sets is the other side of vector animation that's important. So for our team, we typically have character artists and background artists when it comes to vectoring. And the character artists, they'll design the character parts and the props and whatnot that they wear. So like, all it's doing is it's basically breaking apart the character into their limbs and their many different parts, so that way they can be posed around, moved. Like if Jeremy wants to start, like, remove Lyra's head, please.
Oh my
And
now you have
suddenly
blood in my
Lyra
head.
has no face.
Anyway, you wind up taking all these parts, you wind up distributing them to your layers.
I think Jeremy's having fun.
At least she still has her legs so she can wear her pants.
She needs her legs to wear pants.
You can basically distribute all these parts to different layers, and then you can tween them.
Jeremy, put
Okay,
Lyra back
Jeremy.
together right now.
You can basically distribute these parts to layers, and then you can wind up animating each individual part via tweens. Typically, you're going to want to use classic tweens. Sometimes you might want to use motion tweens. Even sometimes as well, you're going to want to use frame by frame. But basically, you have
I'm sorry, it's really funny.
wow.
Zed's trying to be all serious, and then we're just here laughing.
That's kind of the dynamic.
We're all
of
like,
group
well,
in
nope.
general. Zed is
Zed's
serious.
always so serious, and we're all just like, ha 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 in the back.
Am I human yet, Bon Bon?
But yeah,
Okay,
you,
she's
ba-
back there again.
you basically just distribute the parts to layers, and you're able to animate each individual part until finally you have a completed character animation. Then you combine these completed character animations into a full-length animation. Usually, animation will be broken up into 2 different phases. Usually, you have dialogue, and then you have actions, and those are you can kind of categorize any animation or any short animation into one of those 2 things. So yeah, I just went over that. Now, as far as Flash goes specifically, it is a really broad topic. So it's not something that can really be learned in a day. If you really want to learn Flash from having no background in it, I would recommend the tutorials by Oni NG on YouTube and Newgrounds. He has some really thorough and really good tutorials that kind of show you the basics of Flash. They demonstrate frame by frame, tweening, and sound exporting. beyond that, there's also other animation principles you want to make sure you learn as well, such as giving characters recoil, ease, basically natural reactions and stuff like that, eye movements. And other things to remember is that each animator also tends to have their own animating style. For instance, I use a lot of nesting in my animations, so that means like, if you notice Lyra's head, her entire head was moving around, but inside that head, then you also have her mouth, her eyes, her eyelids, her hair, all that kind of stuff. And then inside some of those, you also have even more layers. So my Flash symbols can get a little bit complex and a little bit deep. Other animators, they like to have all the symbols out on one, basically just on one layer. There's also as I said before, there's also frame-by-frame animation, which is also a little bit different. And the important thing about these differences is that when you're going to be collaborating in an extended project, you want to make sure that the animators are all using similar methods, just so that way they can work with each other's creations. Now, another program that's often used for animation is After Effects. And some examples of what's actually been created with After Effects has been like, if you've seen the Two Best Sisters play, that's been made with After Effects. There's also, I can't remember the specific.
Ow!
There's also there's one animation that surfaced a while ago that was about like Twilight making a potion and Pinkie Pie winds up running in and interrupting it. That was also animated mostly in After Effects. If you're going to do any animation in After Effects, you are going to need to have a good understanding of vector work for it to look good. Otherwise, it might look like it's over-eased or it's really rubbery, if that makes sense. Kind of like where the characters constantly, like the characters really, they just don't seem to bend normally. After Effects is an amazing tool, and it can really bring a lot more to animation, but it's really hard to use as a primary animation tool.
There'll be questions in a little bit, because I saw
Yeah.
We'll have Q&A in just a second.
Yeah, we know we're covering a lot in pretty
A lot
rapidly.
in like 15 minutes, but Q&A.
Now, really there's several layers of kind of like how an animation winds up evolving. It usually starts out as a script, and then it goes into like concepts such as storyboarding and artwork. Then you start working on the backgrounds and the voice work and the audio. And then that's actually when, once you get the dialogue exported, it's actually a lot easier to make the animation itself. And once you have the animation completed, then you can go and you can add in the score, such as like what Last of Us does.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the general overview. Sometimes it changes for different projects and different groups. Anyway, moving forward.
Are we going to show it now?
After
Time?
this.
Is time? Ah, I'm too excited.
Now we've all been involved in several projects before. Our team actually got founded after Project Saturation, which, if anybody remembers that, it was one of the earlier attempts at making a movie.
And it failed.
It fell upon its.
It failed for a few different reasons.
Yeah.
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 Part of the reason was that it was just way too big for itself. But basically, one crucial piece of advice that we can give you if you're going to be going into an animation team, try to avoid causing drama, but also still make sure you have fun with it. Don't treat it like a serious business, because you're still doing this as a hobby, so it should still be for fun. But at the same time, don't be using it as a drama outlet.
When you're part of a group, when you're part of a production group, it can be really hard to find that happy medium between complete business and just utterly goofing off. And I'm kind of looking over at those two over there.
What?
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Utterly goofing off and then like going crazy and all this drama. But that happy medium is one of the most important things to actually getting your project done.
You also
So.
have to know it's not all about you when you're working with the team.
Yeah.
'cause that can be
Teamwork
It's
makes
all
the
about
dream
me.
work.
Jeez.
Also communicate, because I'm pretty sure every voice actress up here can attest to, some kind of time where there was just no communication, and then the animation comes out and they're like, oh, I thought I was playing this part. Why am I not? There's a lot of just like communicate with people. Tell them if you need them by this deadline, let them know. Don't just like recast them and not tell them type of deal. Same
Yeah.
for anyone you're working with, really.
Yeah. To be honest, I've noticed that just as an animator myself, I've noticed that VAs do seem to get a lot of crap in the fandom. or they seem to get kind of tossed aside. Like they have a mentality that they're a dime a dozen. Really, that's not really appropriate, and that's really not good team dynamics. If you're treating people like that, you're really setting yourself up for failure in the long run.
So
Anyway, this is an animation panel, so you guys probably want to see an animation, right?
This is
Alright.
really special for, I mean, it's special for all of us, but it's really special for me. So
it's a huge project. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm
It's gonna
really
be so
looking
awesome.
forward to this. I was the writer on this, and I'm the project lead on this. I'm also voicing the main character, so I'm really
It's the
excited.
Meredith
brilliant
show.
writer.
It's the Meredith
The
show.
script she wrote was beautiful.
It's amazing.
I cried.
No, like really, my eyes started misting up. It's so
It's good.
Oh,
Right,
this-
brilliant. It's actually.
It's really special to my heart, so I'm really hoping that it will be just as special for you guys as it is for me and all of us.
Do note though that this is just a trailer.
This is just a trailer. It's
Yeah.
not done yet.
the whole thing's gonna be
but
what,
it's a good trailer.
11?
It'll be about an 8 to 11 minute short coming out in the holidays. So
Should I like duck or something?
start it. Maybe.
Watch the show.
We'll screen it, please.
Where's the sound?
Wait, where's?
Where's the sound?
Pause it.
Oh my God!
Pause it.
Can you get the audio fixed?
We have a technical difficulty. Please
Jen, can you say it
remain
for-
in
Yeah.
the chairs.
I need a
while we
script.
yeah. Jin narrated the whole thing, so we could just give Jin the script, but then we would have to cut out our Discord voice actor Rev, if any of you know him from Epic.
It was his birthday
Webtime.
yesterday.
Yeah.
It was his birthday.
happy
yeah.
birthday,
No,
Rev.
Happy
yeah,
birthday.
it was yesterday.
Have you ever stood
Um,
outside to take in the winter's first snow? Tasted the crisp air, let the stars of ice fall upon your face. It's truly a gift, winter's gift to us. But once upon a time, no pony knew this gift was there, waiting to be discovered. Well, all except one. Snowdrop.
Little fun fact: when the original credits showed, my name was spelled McGregord. So.
That little bit though. Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
Did you see
He
that little bit? That was probably about. Once we had most of the assets made, that was probably about I'd say about 3 weeks of work, just because it was a little bit more visually intense than some of our other stuff. But anyway, we kind of have gone through most everything. So if anybody has any questions about anything related to the animation or even about our team itself, feel free to fire them.
Should
Let's see. Can we get somebody with a?
Rab.
Rab.
Rab. Where's Rab?
Rab.
Get this.
Do you still want to help?
Poor Rob.
Not giving you an option.
He volunteered. He can't back out now.
Let's see.
How does your mom's spaghetti taste?
It's delicious.
I told you everybody would find that spaghetti.
I didn't even notice it.
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
know where it
We
was.
have to point it out this time.
Until I was told to look.
I have a question about your sound effects.
Mhm.
Where do you get them? Like, do you get them off like a free site or something?
Sound effects, they can largely be just found wherever you can find them on the internet. Actually, if you're on DeviantArt, I'm actually admin of the group Pony Animators. I actually have a journal posted on there that has a series of resources where you can download a bunch of free sound effects. I'd recommend starting there. Sound effects, it's kind of just wherever you can find them.
There are lots of websites that offer free sound effects.
And you can try to make your own as well. I do that personally.
Yeah.
Be a Foley artist.
Let's see. Let's go right over there.
Anywhere, yeah.
Or
Okay, bye, Rob.
You mentioned about if you're a voice actor, how to get yourself out there to work on projects like this. What would you say for a Flash animator or a vector artist that wants to do more of these projects?
Everyone wants you people.
yeah, if you actually are a vector or a flash animator, you actually do have a lot of free reign. Really, the vector artists are kind of unsung heroes behind the animation, and flash animators, they are really kind of one of the most important forces behind it, obviously, because the project really won't be anything without animators. Most projects, they're going to be looking for them quite readily. So just always feel free to send any group a message just offer ask if they'd be interested in hiring in another animator.
Yeah,
But
these
that's
guys
probably what I
behind
would
the
recommend.
scenes need more love. Like,
Yeah.
But
It
make sure
also-
to show that you have something to show first, instead of just saying, I'm interested in animating, then tell me how to do it. Because I've had that happen too.
Yeah.
It also helps if you know people. Like Meredith introduced me to these people because she saw my animation.
And now we're best friends.
Thanks to our mutual friend Dalton, who told me that you were an animator in the first
Yes.
place.
Let's see.
You said that you need more than a script to get a project going. What if you can't draw?
I'd recommend if you finding a close friend who actually can and working with them. Really, I know a lot of people do want to want to see their scripts come to life, but they really need to make sure that that they still can offer something beyond just simple writing. I mean, if the script is really, really, really good, that might be able to entice some people just with the script itself. But really, to get the word out there and for people to take it more seriously, you do need to figure out something. Like
on some projects I've been on, they've had assigned concept artists, and that has really helped and me personally as a voice actor to know what's going on and how to visualize the project. So that is absolutely great.
like how I actually originally got started back in Project Saturation. The script for the project was interesting to me enough to where I actually went forward and offered to help animate that with the individual who had written the script.
If it's a cool project, you'll pick up people along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What I've done before too is I can't draw either, but I write scripts and I do audio. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll put an entire audio track together and say, that's what I did when I asked you to animate something for me. I said, here's the entire audio track. Would you be interested? Because then it gives them something to work with. It's not just, oh, hey, I have this script.
I'd like to elaborate on the sound effect topic. Freesounds.org is pretty well also, but getting the best emotion is definitely recording your own samples, because you can pitch them and change what they sound like. Definitely, I know a lot of tracks I make, like bottle caps or just like anything you find around the house, and then pitch them and then change what they sound like to get like a different sound out of it.
Yeah.
It's definitely cool to do.
Yeah.
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 I'm sure if you have the means to make your own sound effects, go for it. Really.
Yeah.
I
It
do
was
the
also
fart
kind of nice to
noises for
not
the
be using
show.
stock sound effects.
That's why she's so smelly.
Love you. Love you too.
She said that while we were on live stream.
I smell.
What tips would you give to voice actors as far as like emoting and other stuff like that?
My favorite trick for like kind of coming out of my shell and like going all over the place is I talk to myself a lot, and that kind of helps because like when you're in the car and somebody cuts you off, you just start yelling, and then I like take that back and like I have a yelling line and like, oh, just remember that jerk who cut me off driving the other day, and I don't know, you kind of build on coming out of your shell and going all over the place with your voice.
Yeah, that sounds like a joke, but I talk to myself too.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm completely
honestly,
serious.
it helps me. It helps me understand emotion. I'm actually teaching in the very back there. I'm helping Tucker with the hat do some voice stuff. And when I was helping him record a sample, we were in my dorm room, and I had my mic on my couch, and he wasn't getting the yelling right. So I just I stood back and I was like, Tucker, yell at my couch. The couch makes you mad. Yell at my couch. And he was like, what? Yell at my couch. And so I kept yelling at him until he yelled too, and it actually worked. So
yeah,
you did make that couch cry, Mr. Ironwill.
Pretend you're yelling at something that you don't like.
What I find sometimes helps is that find something in your life that really resonates with you. Find something that would evoke similar emotions to what you're trying to go for, and that'll help really make things personal, and to really, like people say, put yourself in the character. It's really useful.
Yeah, and I've never had acting experience ever, and just kind of jumped into this. But another thing is when you're talking to your friends, just kind of pick up on what it sounds like. I don't know, just listen to people.
Practice wherever you can, even if it's in the shower.
Yeah,
even if
really
it's-
listen
I do that
for
too.
subtle inflections in people's voices. See how much emotion people put behind it, even when you wouldn't really normally notice that.
Yeah.
Get into the mindset of your character and try to think about what they're thinking and what the context is, what emotions they're experiencing with that line. Because if you can't believe what you're saying as your character, then how will your audience believe you?
True dat.
Another one?
I know that some of you guys do voice acting as well as they also sometimes do singing as well. How Like, what are the differences between voice acting and then singing?
Oh, well,
Well, I can't sing.
Do you mean like character singing or just regular singing? Character singing. Okay.
well,
You can speak on that. You've done more character singing than.
oh, I've been singing all my life as well as acting, and singing, well, in singing in general has helped me with voice acting because it actually, the warm-ups and exercises you do really help improve your range and can really help you. Well, for me, actually, my natural voice is much higher than what I'm speaking right now, so I'm like, oh, I'm up here somewhere, and then Celeste's voice is like, hello, my loyal subjects. And so, like, it really helps with that. And for character singing, well, there's really not much of a difference. Like, it's the same type of principle. You listen to their voice and see how they do it, to the inflections, the emotion, and all that, and you try to bring your own to it, bring your own personal touch to it.
I will say that a lot of people say that my natural singing voice, which is what I put in my Fighting is Magic audition, sounds a lot like Twilight's singing voice in the show. So that one I didn't have to really practice much, but when I had to learn how to do Fluttershy's singing voice, sometimes it takes a little bit of practice to get your character into your voice. So again, it's just like regular acting. You just need to practice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do a whole lot of character singing, mostly for fun, but I think you kind of have to find the balance between how much you want to characterize it and how much you want to have the sing. Unless you're like, a naturally good singer, which I'm not. And when I try to sing as Colgate, a lot of people mention that you're kind of forcing your voice into making it really high because this is not my natural voice. So I kind of had to just find a happy medium between making it sound like what I thought Colgate should sound like and then trying to actually hit the right notes.
There's like, Lost Boss has a question. I'm sorry. I didn't see.
I'm actually a vector artist on another project, and I was just wondering, like, well, I have two things, but the first one is, how do I get on other projects?
Vector art, if you're willing to work with multiple projects, usually if you can just find another team who's also working, just go forward to them and just ask them if they want if they'd be willing to take you. I know Jade, for instance. Well, she also animates with us. She's also on Double Rainboom, for instance. Same thing goes for our team member Zwivel. He's actually a modeler on Ponycart, as well as being a vector artist with us, and also a vector artist with Double Rainboom as well. Some other vector artists like Shadiosis and HC, who are two phenomenal vector artists we have. As far as I know, they only care to work with us, but by all means, they have the ability to work with others if they want.
You could post on Pony-chan. People will love you.
Oh, yeah.
And I have from Twitter from Allie for Jen and Hannah. She says you're all a bunch of losers.
Shut up, Alina.
Yeah, is that Alina?
Yeah.
Hi, Alina.
I am not surprised.
Love you, Alina.
Hi, Alina.
Not.
Gary Punch, stop drinking all that booze.
I'm hoping to be a video game animator, and also I've been looking into 2D animation, vector animation as well. How many different angles do you have to make for a character on average, and do you know of any freeware animation vector programs?
As far as freeware, I don't think there are any. I think it's really limited to Flash, Toon Boom, and Anime Studio. If you're tight on money, I would actually recommend Anime Studio.
Inkscape is actually free vector software.
Well, that's free vector software, but it's not It's not animation.
True.
It's just for making vectors. If you want to just make vectors, you can use Inkscape. But if you want to actually animate, you're gonna need something. You're gonna probably need to pay for something, or even torrent it.
Not that we recommend that.
Oh yeah. And then as far as making angles for a character, usually you're gonna want You're gonna want to make the 3 basic angles, which is gonna be the profile, which is basically from the side, the front, and then the 3/4. Additional angles that you're gonna want to need later on for more advanced animations is gonna be the 3/4 backside, as well as a complete backside, and maybe a top down. Otherwise, I think that's about it.
Jade has something to say.
I actually think there's a free animation program called Pencil. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I've never tried it, but I think it's... Yeah, it's frame by frame stuff.
Speaking of frame by frame, if you want to do animation with Hout, using vectors at all, there's also the option of frame by frame. One of my friends, Subuki, he actually does all of his animations based on frame by frame as well. So that's also an option. And those can still look pretty viable and pretty cool. Anyway, Lost Spots?
Hello. So I am a musician, and I'd love to help out, but how do I get involved in sort of these projects? Because they're looking for like writers and voice actors and actresses and animators, but I don't know how to start as a musician for helping out with an animation team.
Well, getting music for animation, usually it's kind of a bad habit that we have, but we kind of do it. We kind of think about it a little late, but
We just rev last minute.
I see how it
Yeah,
is.
our Discord
But,
voice actor did the background for the trailer, the background music for that.
yeah.
So.
However, one thing that I would recommend, I can guarantee that animator groups would be willing to basically just eat up a musician. If you want to animate and do scoring for a project, come forward to a team and just offer to do background music for them, and they would more than likely be willing to take you.
Animation teams would all love music. You know,
Yeah.
I always see in every project I'm on, there's always an issue of like, who should we get to compose? So, you know, come approach us.
Well, you know what I do.
Yeah. Well, we know you.
Just keep an eye out for projects.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye out for any projects that come forward.
Sorry, I missed that, Luna, by the way.
Tia!
Just kidding.
No, do not give that to her. Oh.
Aw.
I mean,
I've used Inkscape before, but I don't know how to remove the black lines.
Black lines. Jade, are you familiar with Inkscape at all?
we don't know.
I'm not really sure. I'm not actually. Well, actually, I think there's actually an answer over there. The canvas? Is that what it would be? I'm not sure how to remove the canvas, but I don't think it really, for animation, because it's just a vector, I don't think it really makes much of a difference.
Or you can use Google. I know that a lot of times when I've seen other people have the same issue, they're like, you know, what do I do with this? And they go around to other people, but sometimes the easiest answer is actually the easiest. And it's like, you find it exactly just the right way to phrase it, go on Google, bam, there it is.
I think, yeah. I actually think that the black lines that you might be seeing actually might just be there for your reference, and they actually don't exist in the image file itself as well. So I think they might just be there just so that way you know where you're working. You kind of have an anchor point.
Run.
So slow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Rena, can I have my coat back? I mean, when you've got a moment.
It's up in the musician's room. I have to find them.
I don't know where that is. I'm not a musician.
Yeah.
Okay, there's this guy. Who are you? That's cool.
Jeez, Carrie, you stole his coat?
I didn't mean to.
Uh-huh. That's what they all say.
Some questions up front.
That's what they all say.
I'm afraid. What?
These are Hannah's sisters, by the
Oh,
way. Hi,
no.
Hannah's sisters. Nobody
I have
said
a
it.
question.
Dear God,
for
can you speak
Hannah
any louder into
May.
the mic? What? What?
So I hear you have some, I don't know, sisters.
I don't.
I don't know.
I don't actually.
I hear they're pretty awesome too.
I putting them up for adoption tomorrow.
You know, I don't know who those ones are, but I know you have.
Oh, I am
others.
very aware of who those ones are.
Well, I hear they're very pretty.
Oh my God.
And then the other sister is very ugly.
Next question.
All right.
That's a question?
I will say you are the best Sweetie Belle I've heard.
Okay,
Yeah.
You are
probably have time
fantastic.
for
You
one
are.
more question.
Hannah's sister
there's
is
one there
amazing,
in-
Sweetie
so
Belle.
for a while.
You, sir.
Is there like a certain project that either is like voicing or animation that is considered your favorite? And this goes to all of you.
A what?
In Silly Philly Studios, or just?
Just like, let's say, like a different animation person, like who does certain animations, like let's say Hotdiggedydemon or some other channel, like you did a voice for or did something for them. Like, what's your favorite?
I don't know.
Personally, my favorite would probably be our flagship animation, Luna's Cutie Mark, just because yeah. Again, Lost Foss did the music for that. I really like Egophiliac's work, and I really like that comic, so it was really kind of an honor to be able to animate it. And it was also, that one was done completely from scratch. Like, it wasn't even using
Whoa. Oh, I jumped.
like a lot of the all the puppet work on that one was actually done by myself. A few of the background I had help with the backgrounds and the components by Shade, and it was really kind of like the very first thing that I made that was completed and was like, it felt like a complete animation for me.
I agree, because Luna's Cutie Mark is the best animation ever.
Oh yeah.
And it had a great score.
Yeah. I don't know. Twilight the Unicorn was pretty.
No one
pretty
can beat the
awesome.
Royal Pony Sister package. Right here.
Right here.
Right here.
Oh. I can say things in Flutterhigh's voice. That
Yeah, Twilight.
that beats you.
Hey, Canterlot Gardens! Come with me to Sugar Cube Corner.
Over and over and over and over and over again
Stole
in my
my
room.
Don't
like
do
hours.
I'm going to animate that right now.
Pain will be more than real.
Goodbye, audience.
Our Twilight voice actor Tay can attest to that.
Hey, Tay.
Hi, Tay.
Hi, Tay. All the way
You're
in,
probably watching the stream.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Is that it? My favorite project to voice I had a lot of fun doing Twilight in the Pony.move series. That was just crazy fun. And I really liked doing the We Love Fine promo for Silly Philly because I got to play Vinyl Scratch.
You guys have any preference? Good.
What is your favorite pony? And if it's not Luna, you can leave right now.
What? Way to go, Hannah.
That actually does have something serious. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do it. Before we conclude here, I do want to make one little toss out right here. For our recent project Snowdrop, we actually are looking for a storyboard artist. So if you are if you're familiar with concept or comic art, feel free to send us a email at sillyphillystudios@gmail.com. You can also check out our website, sillyphillystudios.com, or you can also just
look up Luna's Cutie Mark.
Yeah.
Yes. Or Twilight the Unicorn.
You can send us. You can if you also want to work with us, you can also send us a message over YouTube, which our channel is Silly Philly Studios, and then also you can also contact me directly at zedrin@deviantart.com. So any of those outlets, if you want to do storyboard art for us, we are interested in recruiting you.
Send us samples, please. Please.
We need people.
Anyway, I think that about wraps us up.
All right. Oh, sorry.
Should we play the
Let's
trailer
start from the
again?
beginning.
You guys want to see the trailer one more time for anybody who missed it?
I want to see it again.
All right, Jeremy.
Do it really fast, Jeremy.
Uh-oh.
Well done, Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Yeah, maybe we'll
Can't.
be able to do it.
All right.
All right.
Well,
We actually
Everyone should
don't have time to play the trailer. We
Yeah,
gotta get
play
going.
the trailer. Okay, well, the trailer is on our YouTube page
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it should be already up.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
should already be up there. So if
Go
you want
watch
to see the
it, show your
trailer for
friends.
Snowdrop again, look it up there. So
Yeah.
sounds good. And don't forget to tell us how pretty we all are in the comments.
Tell Jen that her mane and her wings are so pretty.
Aren't they so pretty?
Anyway.
Actually, I can give credit to my mother right in the front row who made this cosplay. Thanks, Mommy.
So, yay.
Just McGregor. Just
I hope you found this useful, guys.
Hey, Mom.
All right. And I think that wraps us up.
All right.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
So,
Thanks for
thanks
coming,
for showing
guys.
interest, and we hope to see more animation
Yeah.
projects coming up soon.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Because there's honestly a whole lot of projects that are coming out of the fandom, but a lot of them don't really have a good sense of direction just yet, and some of them are really falling apart before they get to be realized. So hopefully people will find this useful, people will find it interesting. Anyway.
Yeah.
Go, Jeremy.
All right. Now, first off, sorry, we didn't rehearse this enough.
Clearly not.
Now, note that while you might have a good idea, oftentimes a script is not going to be enough to get your idea out there, and it's not going to be.
Apparently, crush, kill, destroy swag
close
is
that
going
door?
on. It's all good.
Anyway.
Keep going.
Oftentimes you'll find that a script is not going to be enough to get your idea out there, and people aren't going to jump on just a script. You're going to need to have either really good storyboards, an animatic, or a trailer, something like that to draw people into the project and generate interest in it before you can start recruiting things. Let's see. And also, you also want to make sure that you don't wind up underestimating the magnitude of Flash animation.
All right. Hi.
We
All right,
need
how's
more
everyone
people
doing?
here.
Hello.
Hi. We do, because we're premiering something really cool.
Hannah, you should use your Royal Canterlot voice to get more people in here.
Everyone come in here.
Come here now.
There you go. I just did Twilight the Unicorn. That should get it in.
This is not gonna stay in.
Come on, Twilight.
All right. In short, we are Silly Philly Studios, which we are an animation team, fan-based, and we're actually responsible for the recent adaptation of Charlie the Unicorn, Twilight, redubbed as Twilight the Unicorn.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Forgive us.
We've also
Come on, it was funny.
Hello, Lost Foss. Lost Foss sometimes does music for us. He's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, there he is right there. He decided to show up in our room at
He did
3
music
a.m.
for Luna's Cutie Mark, which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
the first one that we ever made. So
Yeah, Luna's Cutie Mark was actually our premiere animation. Anyway, at this panel, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the ins and outs of a animation team, and
I'm sorry if I'm interjecting. Is a lot of people who are leading projects don't want to contact the VAs because they don't think the VAs want to work on it. Well, the VAs sometimes get afraid to contact people because they're afraid that they're just gonna like get shot down horribly because they don't think anybody wants to work with them. Like that's honestly how a lot of us think. So don't be afraid to ask us to do something. We're happy to do it.
The other thing I will throw in to go along with what you said real quick is before you start contacting voice actors, before you start making all these posts and things like that, you need to actually have something going on with your visuals or something, have a plan for that, because so many people say, well, I have this really cool idea for a My Little Pony project, but I need someone to animate, and I need someone to write the script, and I need someone to make the music, and it's like, okay, so what are you doing? Well, I'm in charge, you know, and you have to have a plan.
that's actually really important advice right there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people have come forward to me saying like, hey, do you want to animate this for me, and then I'll take all the credit. Anyway, moving on, animation, for instance, because a lot of work goes into making a very short amount of animation. Like, on average, most animators, it takes them about maybe a week to do only 30 seconds of a clip. Granted, a lot of people can work faster. Some people work even slower than that, but that's kind of just an average. Anyway. Now, to recruit VAs, we're obviously a very VA-heavy team. As you can tell by, we have 4 of our VAs here with us today. Usually, once you have a trailer or an animatic available, all that's necessary to open auditions is just to make it public, and VAs will usually come to you.
Use Equestria Daily.
Yes, usually through Equestria Daily and the Nightly Roundup.
We like new projects. Give us things to voice. We'll do it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to contact us. You know, we like hearing about this stuff.
The nice thing is that VAs can really work in a lot of projects at once, so it's really easy for them to kind of get themselves out there. So it's usually pretty easy to find VAs. But
something that I think happens a lot.
Usually, you need several staff members for a successful animation project. Granted, people can work and occupy multiple roles. Like, in addition to being an artist, I also am in addition to being an animator, I'm also an artist. Meredith, in addition to voicing Fluttershy for our animation, she's also a writer and quite prolific at that.
And the writer of the promo coming up.
Jade is one of our vector artists as well as one of our primary animators. All in all,
we're just the
keep checking.
princesses.
Yeah, it's all
Should
we're
take
just
better
here.
notes. Let's see.
Go, Jeremy.
Silly PowerPoint.
I'm sorry, this is so sloppy.
He made the PowerPoint while he was half asleep on the airplane.
But ponies and
Pony.
ponies should